Hello everyone, I'm Arlise Cristalme Comandante Palmo from General Santos City, and today I will be presenting to you my research proposal entitled Design Considerations in the Production of Communication-Oriented Print Materials for Pupils with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder or ADHD. The goal of a communication-oriented design is to develop a message that can be precisely transmitted and correctly interpreted, and which will produce the desired behavioral outcome after the recipient understood it, and that's according to Mallet and Sano in 1995. This study will therefore be focused on designing a print material that's communication-oriented, tailored for pupils with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. For us to comprehend this study, we must go back to research and review the communication skills of ADHD kids. According to Love and Thompson in 1988, 75% of children diagnosed with ADHD also have been diagnosed with speech or language disorder. According to the study of Tirosh and Cohen in 1998, 45% of children diagnosed with ADHD demonstrated moderate to severe language impairment. The common areas of difficulty were verbal memory, reading, vocabulary, and sentence comprehension. And according to Hartsoe and Lambert and Sainte-Marie in 1992, 6 to 35% of ADHD children are delayed in speech, which is more prevalent than the typical population, which is only 2 to 5.5%. Now, the teachers of pupils with ADHD enrolled in General Santos City's Special Education or SPED Integrated School are already producing their own materials. In fact, these teachers use print instructional materials in their day-to-day teaching. They have flashcards, they have charts, they have handouts, and more. However, they follow no particular format or standard when designing. By that, I mean they have different font sizes, different font colors, different background images, different qualities of paper. There is really no same print material that's intended for the pupils with ADHD. Now, this study has a mission, and that is to produce a communication-oriented print material for pupils with ADHD by finding out their communication skills and following the design characteristics of a good print material suggested by 9 sources. The specific objectives are to determine how SPED teachers use print media in the classroom for pupils with ADHD, to enumerate the factors that affect ADHD teachers in designing print instructional materials for ADHD, to find out the characteristics of a communication-oriented design for pupils with ADHD, to identify how pupils with ADHD communicate with others, and finally, to determine the response of pupils to poorly designed print material, adequately designed print material, and excellently designed print material. Now, why is this study important? Well, because there is very limited research on how the communication skills of pupils with ADHD can affect the designing of print materials for the said respondents. Furthermore, a recent population-based study using the DSM-4 criteria also found that 15.5% of school children enrolled in grades 1 to 5 have ADHD. That would mean the findings of the study would benefit 15.5% of school children or more, and as well as other people who are diagnosed with ADHD. Now, according to our 9 sources, a good print material should use short words, short sentences, an active voice, a positive voice, concrete terms, logical sequencing, clear flow, and vocabulary words applicable to the literacy level of pupils to ensure comprehension. Furthermore, each sentence or thought should not have a double meaning or double interpretation, and symbols must be familiar. A good print material should also use dark ink, for instance black, on light background color, for example yellow or white, because these combinations of colored inks on colored papers are more legible than others, such as red ink on white or yellow paper or black ink on purple or dark red paper. Furthermore, boldface should be preferred than italics or uppercase for emphasis, although boldface should still be used sparingly. Capital letters should also be appropriately used. That would mean only the first letter of sentence, including headings, and the first letter of proper nouns should be capitalized. The reason behind this is that Capital letters create a boxy type shape that may interfere with reading. Underlines should also be avoided because they make text more difficult to read as well. Now, still under the physical attributes, we have the size and style of letters. According to some of the nine sources, a good print material should use larger font with longer lines, use 10 to 12 point type size for text, use 14, 18, or 24 point type size for headings, use the appropriate typeface, that would mean a serif typeface for the body of the text and a sans serif typeface for the headings and others. It should also use less than 3 typefaces, and the medium type weights should also be used instead of light typefaces. Bizarre and weird typefaces should also be avoided so that the pupils will be able to easily read the words or the sentences presented in the print material. Now for the spacing, still under the physical attributes, the amount of space between the lines should be linked to the size of the font. For instance, if the point type size is 10, then there should be 2 to 4 points leading space to ensure eligibility. Unjustified text should also be preferred for them to be easily read, and the print material should also have 10mm top and bottom margins and 25mm for right and left margins. Proper vertical spacing should also be used. For instance, if the paragraphs are lengthy, they should be in a more open manner. Overall, under the physical attributes, there should only be 1 or 2 additional cues, for instance, a change of size, spacing, or typeface, because 3 or more could cause visual overload. According to Berlin in 1971, people have a limit to the amount of visual cueing that they can effectively absorb, process, and use before the cues become distracting. For the presentation techniques, the print material should also use colors properly, not too many, so as not to inhibit communication or overshadow the message. Use color headings for appeal, use color for grouping, and use bright, attractive colors to attract the attention of the pupils with ADHD. Lists should also be preferred when applicable instead of a run-on in continuous prose because research suggests that readers prefer text that has lists or numbered items spaced out and separated compared to a run-on in continuous prose. Furthermore, the print material should use a different paragraph for each topic or idea. Paragraph should start with the topic sentence to be easily understood. A line of spacing should also be preferred rather than indentation to signify the start of a new paragraph. According to Hartley, the reason behind this is that when the text consists of numerous small elements, using indentation to denote new paragraphs can be misleading. A good print material should also use relevant, clear, colorful pictures and symbols to enhance the message. Furthermore, elements that are related should be grouped together to avoid disorder, and attention-attracting features should also be used appropriately. Titles are preferred to be placed on top of the text, and headings are ideal to be used as questions too. Overall, under the presentation techniques, the print material should have a clear layout with lots of white space, free of visual clutter, so that the pupils with ADHD can better understand the content of the material. At the start of this presentation, we reviewed some statistics regarding the communication problems of pupils or kids with ADHD. And so, how will we connect those problems to our goal or mission to design a communication-oriented print material? Well, here are some examples. For instance, pupils or kids with ADHD lose track of conversational threads entirely or miss details, failing to register vital bits of information. Now, when we apply that to the designing of print material for them, that would mean that it's essential to use relevant pictures, group related elements together, and use headings to facilitate memory because, once again, they lose track of conversational threads entirely or miss details. Another problem is that they are easily distracted by details and fail to understand main ideas. Now, if we apply that to designing of print materials should have limited attraction appealing features to foster comprehension, which, if you still remember, we have mentioned that earlier when we were presenting or reading the table. And another problem is that they have a difficult time managing large clumps of conversation at once. If we apply that to print design, that would mean the print material should use short words, short sentences, have a clear layout, and use limited visual cues only. So you see, there is really a connection between the communication skills of the pupils with ADHD and the manner by which the print materials should be designed for them. The symbol systems theory framed this study. This is a learning theory developed by Professor Gabriel Salomon in 1985, which states that symbol systems consist of representational codes such as words, pictures, or graphs that are used to select, highlight, structure, and present information to the receiver in the acquisition of knowledge. It is also focused on the characteristics of a medium. One of its principles is that the effectiveness of a medium depends upon its match with the learner, the content, and the task. This would be an excellent theory for this study because the study is focused on matching the print medium or the print materials for the pupils with ADHD in relation to their communication problems. This study claims that a communication-oriented print material can be achieved when there are more design characteristics included in the design and when the communication skills of the pupils are considered. The null hypothesis of this study is that there is no relationship between both the communication skills of the pupils with ADHD, as well as the number of design characteristics, and the designing of communication-oriented print materials for pupils with ADHD. The alternative hypothesis is that there is a relationship between the communication skills of the pupils with ADHD, as well as the number of design characteristics, and the designing of communication-oriented print materials for pupils with ADHD. For this study, communication skills would refer to the day-to-day manner of social communication, both verbal and nonverbal, of the pupils as observed by their parents or guardians. The pupils will refer to the learners from grades 1 to 6 enrolled in General Santos City Special Education or SPED Integrated School who have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a neurodevelopmental disorder defined by impairing levels of inattention, disorganization, and hyperactivity impulsivity. The communication-oriented print materials refer to the handouts that are communication-oriented or centered for pupils with ADHD that will be used for the experiment. These will be developed based on the design characteristics suggested by the 9 sources and on how pupils with ADHD communicate daily. Now, why is this study focused on print? For one, for pupils with ADHD who need more time to learn materials as stated by therapy time, using print to communicate messages and lessons is advantageous. Furthermore, a study by Meadowcroft and Olson in 1995 has shown that print permits more visualization than video because the latter is characterized by a fast-paced nature that contributes to passive processing. This means that pupils with ADHD could have more time processing the information if it's presented in a print form. Moving on to the methodology of the study, the research design would be experimental. The research participants would be all the pupils diagnosed with ADHD enrolled in General Santos City SPED Integrated School. The parents and the teachers of the pupils will also be asked to participate by answering a questionnaire. The research instruments would be a 4-part questionnaire for the teachers, a 7-item questionnaire for the students, and a 35-item questionnaire for the parents. The questionnaire for the parents will describe the day-to-day communication skills of their kids. Now, this is how the researcher will gather and process the data. First, the researcher will ask permission from the Department of Education, General Santos City Division School Superintendent, Sir Gildo Mosqueda, and the researcher will also ask permission from the school principal, Ms. Rowena Cabreros, and as well as to the teachers for the conduct of the study. Once there's consent from the authorities involved, the researcher will distribute the questionnaires to the teachers, which will answer the objectives on how the print media will be used and what factors affect the designing of their print instructional materials in the classrooms. The researcher will also distribute the questionnaires to the parents to identify how these kids with ADHD communicate day to day. Then the answers will be recorded on an Excel spreadsheet. Then the researcher will design the handouts following the ADDIE model, and then the handouts will be shown to the pupils. Now, the ADDIE model is an instructional design model which has 5 phases. It has an analysis phase, design phase, development phase, implementation phase, and evaluation phase. Next, the questionnaires intended for the pupils will be distributed to them to identify their response to poorly designed print material, adequately designed print material, and excellently designed print material. Now, the poorly designed print material will include none of the design characteristics suggested by the 9 sources we mentioned earlier. Now, the adequately designed will include all the design characteristics of a good print material, but it won't consider the communication skills of the pupils with ADHD. But the excellently designed will include all the design characteristics and also consider the communication skills of the pupils with ADHD. The answers of the pupils will likewise be recorded on an Excel spreadsheet. Then the most liked design characteristics will be ranked. To determine the relationship of the ranked data answered by the pupils, the non-parametric Friedman test will be used. The null hypothesis of this test is that there is no significant difference among variables. The relevant equation for the Friedman test is as follows, where x squared r is the chi-square, n is the number of pupils, k is the number of variables, and the capital R is the total ranks of the variables. Now there will be 3 variables for the study. They will be poorly designed print material, adequately designed print material, and excellently designed print material. The researcher will use their degrees of freedom formula k minus 1, in this case 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. And since the alpha level that the researcher will use is 0.05, then the critical value will be 5.99147. This means that if the chi-square value is greater than 5.99, the null hypothesis will be rejected, which means that there is a significant difference among the 3 variables. And if that is so, the researcher will then display a table showing which of the variables is or are significantly different from other variables. And that has been my research proposal presentation. Once again, I'm Marlies Crisome Comandante Paalmo from General Santos City. If you have concerns, questions, clarifications, feel free to ask me, to contact me, and of course, I would really appreciate if you'd comment down below and like this video. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.